I had lunch with a banker last week, and we got into a conversation about clients we share in common. And we both landed on the same observation. The people with the best foundation for building wealth are not necessarily the people who grew up with money. They are the people who grew up around conversations about money, structure, dialogue. It's exposure to how money actually works early in life. That lunch made me think about something I run into almost every time I sit down with a new client. They believe that the Roth IRA are the path to retirement, and that anything outside of those two vehicles is risky. It's unproven, but not for people like them. Today I'm going to show you where that belief came from, who it benefits, and what the people who actually build generational wealth are doing instead. To understand the 401k, you have to understand what it replaced. Before the 401k existed, pensions were the primary retirement vehicle in this country. Here's what a pension meant for an employee. You stayed on the job. The company funded the account. When you retired, you received a guaranteed monthly benefit for the rest of your life. The company carried the financial risk. The worker received the guaranteed reward. So what happened to the pensions, right? Two things. And both of them point in the same direction. First, lifespans extended. Companies had built their pension funding assumptions around workers retiring and not living for decades afterwards. When an average lifespan grew, the cost of paying a promised benefit for 25 or 30 years in retirement instead of 10 became a real financial burden on corporate balance sheets. They couldn't have that. Secondly, companies began underfunding their pension obligations, taking what they called funding holidays, building projections on optimistic market assumptions. And when those gaps caught up with reality, workers showed up at retirement and the promised benefit had been cut, sometimes significantly. This was not a systemic accident. It was a pattern, the same pattern that led to corporations to work against organized labor. Because when workers can organize collectively, they can hold employers accountable for the commitments that were made. Remove collective bargaining, shift the responsibility of retirement to the worker, and you replace the pension with the 401k. The pension put the financial risk on the employer, but entirely on you. So the K, which is a tax-deferred employer retirement savings plan, became popular through the 1980s following a 1978 tax code change. Here's the structure. You contribute money from your paycheck before taxes are taken out. Your money grows without being taxed while it sits in that account. But when you withdraw it in retirement, every single dollar is taxed as ordinary income at whatever income tax rate exists in that year. That's in the future. Tax deferred, not tax free. Deferred. All right? You're still gonna have to pay those taxes. In 2025, the maximum employee contribution to a 401k was $23,500. If you were older last year, the IRS allowed a catch-up contribution that brought that total to $31,000. For many people, that is a meaningful savings rate. But if you are working towards a seven-figure wealth, those contribution limits are a ceiling on how fast you can build through that vehicle. Now, let's talk about the Roth Individual Retirement Account. The Roth IRA gives you tax-free growth and tax-free distributions in retirement. Many financial professionals will tell you it is the best tax advantage vehicle available to the average American. And within the world of accounts that are widely marketed to the general public, that may be accurate, but here is what gets left out of the conversation. Check this out. If you are a single filer earning more than $168,000 in 2026, you are fully phased out of contributing to a Roth IRA. You're no longer eligible. If you are married, filing jointly with a combined household income above $252,000, you cannot contribute at all to a Roth IRA. Think about what that means in real terms. Two people, each earning $126,000 a year. Combined household income is $252,000. In most major American cities, that is a solid professional income, not wealth by most definitions. Excluded from the vehicle that was framed as the tax advantage for working Americans. If this account was genuinely designed to level the playing field between the middle class and the wealthy, why does it exclude people who earn a professional income? So what are the wealthy doing? Here's a fact that most financial planning conversations will never surface. The majority of truly wealthy Americans, households with a net worth above $13.5 million, which is the threshold for the top 1%, do not hold the bulk of their retirement savings in any 401k. They're not primarily relying on Roth IRA accounts either. In many cases, the income limits I just described eliminate that option entirely. So if the wealthiest Americans are not using the vehicles that every employer benefit package, every financial services commercial, and every HR orientation presents as the standard path to retirement security, then where's that money going? That's not rhetorical. I'm going to answer it. But first, one more piece of context, because without it, the next part of the conversation will not land the way it deserves to. The tax rate that nobody teaches you, all right? The federal income tax was introduced to the United States in 1913, okay? That's over 110 years of income tax history in this country. Over those years, there have only been 50 years where the top variable income tax rate was under 50% years out of 10. And there were more than 15 years, primarily in the post-World War II era, where the top income tax rate was 90 or higher. 15 years. That's not speculation. That's documented federal tax history. Ronald Reagan talked about this publicly. He said that as a movie actor, he would only accept 2 or 3 films per year because if he took on one more role, the additional income would be taxed at 90 cents on the dollar. It wasn't economically rational to earn more. He cited this directly as one of the reasons why he entered politics. Look at it. And he entered politics in 80. The tax code changed for us in 1983. Here's why the history matters for your 401k right now. We are currently living in one of the lowest income tax rate environments in American history. The Tax Cuts and the Jobs Act rates have been in place since 2018. Whether those rates remain, rise, or are modified by Congress over the next decade is completely unknown. What is known is that the current environment is historically unusual, not historically normal. If you have a 401k, you agree to defer your taxes. Every dollar you withdraw in retirement gets taxed as ordinary income at whatever rate exists in that year. You do not know what that rate will be. You are making a bet that taxes in the future will be lower than they are today during what is already one of the historically low periods based on 113 years of data. What are the odds that that bet pays off in your favor? So back to the question I left open. If the wealthy are not in counts, not in Roth IRA accounts, not exposed to deferred tax liability that comes with both, what are they doing? The answer lives in a section of the Internal Revenue Code that's been available to every American for decades, but not been predominantly marketed to the general public. Internal Revenue Code Section 7702. A 770 account works like this. Your money grows inside the account. When you need access to your capital, you can do so without the 10% early withdrawal penalty the IRS charges for accessing a 401k before you're 59 and a half years old. While you're accessing that money, the account continues to compound and grow. The balance doesn't stop working while you're using the money that you have back in your pocket. And when it's time to retire, the income you take from this account comes out completely tax-free. It's not tax-deferred, tax-free. That's the difference between a 401k. There are no contribution limits structured the same way or Roth IRA restricts you. There's no required minimum distributions or RMDs, which is the mandatory annual withdrawal the IRS forces traditional retirement account holders to take starting at age 73, whether they need the money or not, creating a taxable event every single year by force. This is what happens when you have access to people who know the tax code, not because they are breaking it, but because they know it, just like the wealthy. The wealthy are not paying less in taxes because they're cheating. They are using legal frameworks that were never predominantly advertised to the people who needed them most. That's why information transfer works. It happens in the rooms that most people were never invited into. Listen, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. About a quarter mile from our house was a Winn-Dixie. I'd ride my bike down there, and I used to drink this soda called Czech Cola. They had grape, orange, root beer, cream soda. They had all the flavors, and it was delicious. I had no idea it was the store's generic brand. I thought it was just a soda. I liked it because it tastes great. Kids at school will say, that's off-brand. I'm not drinking that. Same carbonation, same flavor profiles, same function, different label on the bottle. When it comes to retirement planning, most people have been programmed to trust the brand. Is the brand. The Roth IRA, the brand. Not because they're the most effective vehicles for every person's situation, because they are what every employer benefit package, every financial services commercial, and every HR orientation presented as the standard. That is not the same as the best option. The question worth sitting with is this: are you choosing your financial strategy because it has been presented to you as the standard for your whole adult life, or because you actually have evaluated against alternatives and confirmed it was the right fit for you? Here's what I know to be true. The plans I build for clients are referenced directly by the Internal Revenue Service tax codes. You can look them up. They're not fringe strategies. They're not fringe benefits. They are legal. They are established. They simply weren't on the commercial. I'm in this business because access to the information should not be reserved for people who happen to be in the right rooms. Wealth is not an exclusive number that only a few can reach. If you have no debt, stable income, and you're building structured tax advantage growth, that's a wealthy life. You do not need a 9-figure net worth to design a life of genuine financial freedom and stability. So, if you are ready to have a real conversation about how to structure your money with the same legal tools that wealthy use, the first conversation is complimentary. Schedule your strategy review. It's no pressure, just a clear picture of where you stand today and where you can go in the future. The link is in the bio. You have a great day.